So good evening, everybody. I'm so proud to welcome you to this online side event, Energy Transition, at the EU Pavilion COP26. Never before have we heard the voice of faith and science so strongly at the COP conferences. And we have a very strong ethical agenda being pointed to us of heads of nations and speeches in many different sessions. Climate change is urgently calling us to overcome the ethical barriers, the inner and outer barriers, in order to fully utilize the renewable energy technology available to us. My name is Sonja Olsson. I'm calling in from Copenhagen, and I'm moderating on behalf of Brahma Kumaris. So I'm very pleased to welcome a panel of 5 very distinguished speakers who have logged in from across the world this evening. They will point out the shift in awareness and behavior that will help us to build the momentum to fulfill the Paris Agreement and to never let go of the goal of staying below 1.5 degrees global warming. So with me today, I have Kulekani Magwasa, the Lutheran World Federation, calling in from Cape Town. I have Laura Nagel from Institute of Advanced Sustainability Studies from Berlin. Sister GMT Kirpalani, Additional Administrative Head of Brahma Kumaris, calling in from London. Amira Woods, Senior Program Consultant from Shine Campaign in Washington. And Golo Pils, Energy Advisor to the Brahma Kumaris, Mount Abu, India. So what clearly connects us all here this evening, both speakers and listeners, is our concern for the future. And the biggest concern would the youth have. So that's why we're kicking off this event by inviting Kulekani Magwasa to speak first. Kulekani is a council member in the Lutheran World Federation. He's a founder of the Evangelical Lutheran Green Church and the Climate Justice Coordinator at SAFSE. SAFSE means the South African Faith Community Environment Initiative. And he is also a young theologian and climate justice activist. So welcome, Kulekani, to start us off from Cape Town.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that introduction. I'm very happy to be invited in this event, and I really appreciate this opportunity. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to my fellow young people from the Global South and from Africa, and obviously from my community. I want to talk to you about young people embracing technologies and demanding climate justice. And I'm sure you may be expecting me to talk about the modern technologies. One of the things that climate change does is that it changes our cultures. I'm from a context where we are trying to adapt in the climate change effect. We're trying to become resilient, and by becoming resilient, it means that some of the things that we grew up being taught at homes and in our communities, some of them we have to change them. And so if we're talking about technologies, obviously we have to talk about the modern technologies that deal with the issue that we are facing now. I think climate change could also be a new issue because it started with the industrialization. When we are demanding climate justice, our message, especially from the Lutheran Communion, we say that climate justice is a matter of intergenerational justice. because it talks about the future. Intergenerational justice is justice to the future generations and to the future, to the unborn generations. How does intergenerational justice look like in the topic of youth embracing technologies? When I was thinking about that question, I came up with one thing, and that is, it looks like technical justice, or it looks like addressing the issue of technical injustices. So how does it look like? First of all, when we are growing up as young people, we have a lot of ideas we want to explore. And when we go to schools and when we go to the universities, anything that we learn from the universities and from the schools, we want to explore them. We want to put them into practice. We have time to do that. We have time to think about that. And we have time to reflect about that. And so we want to do it. And one of the things that are limiting us from doing what we want to do, or from exploring the ideas that we have, it would most of the times be policy limitations. And I will give you just one example. In October 2017, we hosted a seminar on SDG 13 at the Durban University of Technology, and the seminar was supported by the Lutheran World Federation. In that seminar, we invited a municipal office of energy. One of the things that we wanted to propose at the municipality was that we want to put the solar panels at the roof of our churches, so that we can be able to generate electricity for ourselves, for our churches, and for the surrounding communities, if possible. And now the limitation was that we cannot, no one could do that in the context of South Africa back in 2017. No one could do that because we were only allowed individual, like independent energy producers were only allowed to produce up to 10 megawatts of electricity from whichever technology. And so, and then the second thing was that we needed to apply for a license for that. And applying for a license for that, we don't know the procedure. We don't know all the processes. That was the challenge. But now, fortunately, the president in South Africa has announced that independent power producers can produce power for up to 100 megawatt. But then even with that allowance, we still have to apply for maybe even if we do not apply for a license, when we are producing electricity for our own, we also need to make that as a business so that we are able to sustain it. We were working with the South African Youth Climate Change Coalition and other NGOs, and one of the organizations that we were working with was at the Durban University of Technology. It was called the Green Campus Initiative. And so you could see that we were a group of young people who were very much ambitious to do these technologies. And now if we can do those technologies, we are thinking that we may be facing challenges of the market, because the people that we want to produce electricity to, they are already buying electricity from the municipality or from the government. And so our market is closed for us as young people. And so so I was just talking about the issue of technologies. We have ideas even when it comes to the activities of recycling. And many young people in our context, they are doing recycling activities, and those recycling activities, they include us picking up plastics and picking up bottles and recycling them. And we need more technologies to that. But then what we do not have is the support from other entities and from the government. And so I think the point is, we as young people, we are ambitious enough and we have ideas to implement, and we can do those ideas at any time. But what we need is intergenerational justice. But how does it look like in this context? It looks like a technical justice. We need to be aware what procedures should we go through. We need to be aware how many how long will it take us to exhaust all the processes to do what we want to do, and that will be achieving what we want to achieve, which is climate justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kulekani. And I really like your reminding us that as youth, you have time to reflect. And as adults, this time suddenly just disappears and we become stuck in policies, etc. It's also a new dimension of the word justice, is to what earth do we give to the younger generation. So thank you. All the speakers will have a possibility to reflect on what the other speakers have said at the end. But let's move on to the next speaker, Laura Nagel. Yes, she joined the Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies in 2017, and she is a communication officer for the project Co-Benefit, which focuses on social and economic potential of an ambitious climate protection program focusing on renewable energies. She completed a master in media and cultural studies and has worked as freelance in public relation and broadcasting. She actually served as a public relation coordinator to the Goethe Institute in Hanoi, which also led to many realizations and changes in your life, Laura. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Exactly, yeah, like you just mentioned, my motivation to work in the area of climate action started in Hanoi. I think I can say it like so, because Hanoi, it's beautiful. I loved living there, but it also suffers a lot from air pollution. So that's when I first started to think, okay, I need to start working on this to improve, yeah, in the end, the quality of life. But back then, and also still today, a lot of environmental campaigns were based on rather scaring messages. We have to act now to avoid basically the big doomsday. And I did not really think that this leads people to act, that this really motivates people. So I did not want to become another one of these voices. But instead, I started working for the Co-Benefits project because, like you also briefly already introduced, we work on social and economic opportunities of climate action with renewable energies in countries worldwide, because because climate action does in fact bring a lot of benefits. So for example, India or also Vietnam, they can benefit greatly from improved air quality when they move away from coal and towards a bigger share of renewable energy. And this also has impacts that you can measure even financially, because you can save health costs and economic losses. People are not sick so much anymore. They don't have so many premature deaths. So for example, India could save almost 170 billion US dollar in 2050. So we're really talking about major benefits. And renewable energy is also a job booster. For example, South Africa could create 145,000 jobs in the power sector over the next 30 years. And it's messages like these that really help policymakers in the countries to adopt more ambitious climate strategies, and not only the ministries that work on climate action. And that's also the beauty of this opportunity framing. And also importantly, this energy transition is an opportunity to not make the same mistakes again that have been done in the past. And energy transition should be just. Also a discussion that is very important in South Africa, the Just Transition dialogues. We should also now listen to the communities that are affected by power plants, and we should also ensure a better gender balance, because right now there are more women working in renewables than working in the coal sector, but they are still very much underrepresented, with only about 30% of the workers. So there's still a lot to do, but I think there's also a lot of potential with this transition. Yeah, and these benefits, they really need to be assessed and communicated, and that's what we do at Co-Benefits. But on top of this political level, I was really interested to learn more about what motivates people also on the individual level. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't really believe that this fear appeal is very effective in motivating people. So I recently published a paper on exactly this topic, where I was looking at psychological barriers to climate action, because I observed that even though many people know it's bad, it's very serious, and of course it really is, that doesn't really translate into action. So yeah, basically my main takeaways from working on this paper was that you can use catastrophic messaging, this fear appeal, to get people's attention, but you have to be really careful with that, because usually it doesn't really translate into action, but it rather creates fatalism and denial, and people just think, okay, it's so bad, I don't even know where to start, I will just try to forget about it. And people are actually really good at pushing things aside that they feel overwhelmed with, if they don't feel there's anything that they can really do about it. And instead, I found out that climate communication should really be based on people's values, and because values is something really powerful. They motivate all of our actions and they drive all of our decisions, and they are also pretty stable over our lifetime. Communication should also be based on local environmental issues to really make it more tangible for people, but also still involve the bigger picture to make people understand, okay, this is an issue of global relevance, but it's not only important for people that live far away or in some future generations. I mean, sadly, the past year has also brought climate change very close to us, also here in Germany. But the human brain just works like this. We forget pretty easily about these things. So it's important for communicators to always bridge this gap. And yeah, lastly, also really highlight the immediate gains of climate action. Also not only future benefits, but really what can we, how can we benefit from ambitious climate action right here, right now. And there are a lot of these benefits, like the ones I mentioned, with air quality, with better sustainable jobs. So luckily there's a lot that we can base our messages on. And I think this, this takeaway from my paper also links quite nicely with the topic of this event, because we really need to understand what motivates people and connect to this, instead of doing it the other way around, like it has happened quite often, that we think what is important and then try to make other people, try to convince people, because that's just not a very sustainable approach. And that way, when we really understand what motivates people, when we highlight benefits for them, we can also get those people on board that still don't really believe in human-made climate change, or that maybe believe that this is none of their business, nothing that they can do something about it, or that they just have still different priorities in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. I really appreciated you saying that this doomsday attitude doesn't lead to action at all, but when you focus on the benefit, you feel eager to do something. And I have moderated energy transition side events at the EU Pavilion now for maybe 5-6 years, and never have I had so many women on the panel. So I really understand what you're saying, that the more and more women are coming into renewable energy sector. So that's great. Thank you. Our next speaker is Sister GMT Kirpalani. She's originally from India and lives in the UK. Sister GMT is apart from being the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris worldwide, she's also main representative to the BK at the UN Geneva and director for our centers in the Europe and Middle East. For over 50 years, Sister GMT has been advocate for peace and meditation with a vision and experience that is truly spiritual and global. Since 2009, she has led the Brahma Kumaris delegation to all the UN climate change conferences and spoken internationally about the spiritual perspective relevant to climate change. She advocates the need to return to spiritual love and respect for the self, for all human beings, for all forms of life and nature. Welcome, Sister GMT.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and thank you to the EU organizers for this panel, and thank you to all those who have joined this panel. It was fascinating to hear perspectives from South Africa and Germany, both places that I have visited many, many times. And I want to say that I found the title very interesting because compassionate leadership is really a key factor. Because when leaders sit in an ivory tower and wherever they may be in the world, they themselves are pretty comfortable. The impact of climate change doesn't affect them in a great way. But I think the need now is for a person who is in touch with people, and not just in touch with people, but in touch with their hearts. Because I see a huge transition in that particular energy area also, that there has never been a time such as this in which the voices of the people can be heard so powerfully as it is today. For a long time, we've noticed that the establishment media has a lot of control by governments, and of course, I understand the reasons for that, but also we've seen that they're quite selective about the topics that they choose. But with the advent of social media, we've seen that everybody has a voice and everybody's voice can be heard. But this is the year that there's been a big shift in which I see how climate change has become an equalizer, in the sense that it's not just floods happening in Bangladesh and India that are a problem for the people there, but it's floods happening in Germany and Belgium and all other countries, and the fires that have been sweeping across the West Coast in North America, Siberia. The list is endless. And so we see how we're all in the same boat, and the water that started to come in one side of the boat has now touched everybody. And so I think the big topic that everybody is now aware of is climate change. But of course, the concern is, what are the next steps? What can we personally do to make a difference? And I want to say that even one leader who begins to think about these things and starts to take action can have a huge impact, not only on the other leaders, but also on a huge number of people. We still have that cultural context in most countries where the voice of a leader is always heard. And so I think that even one leader who begins to understand that this is a time for action, not for helplessness, not to sit back and say it's too late. No, I think that there's a lot we can do at this moment. And I know that in India, Golo has been our main renewable energy advisor, and not just advisor, but very much hands-on in terms of setting up all our solar systems. And of course, that's his area, and he'll talk to you in more detail about it. But I know that because Brahma Kumaris at their headquarters started to do this, the whole of the organization was also impacted, not just in India, but across the world. And many people started to explore avenues whereby they could start using renewable energies wherever it is they were living to. And so a compassionate leadership has a huge impact. But it also means that at this moment, whatever it is we are seeing and hearing demands that there should be practical transformation. It's fine to have renewable energies, but it also means that we need to have a change of diet. And that's not such an easy thing to do, although the complexity of and the financial factors of setting up a solar system are enormous. But yet the other side, when it comes to me doing something personally, as personal as changing my diet, now that really takes a very, very detached perspective of what's going on in the world and how each one of us can make a personal contribution to that. You know, if people hadn't taken the actions that they did at the time of apartheid in terms of the whole wide world, I wonder if even President Mandela could have made a difference. But there was a whole worldwide movement that wanted apartheid to be dismantled. And so a shift happened. And I'm thinking that, again, it requires a worldwide movement of people who say there has to be a change, and we're ready to sacrifice some of our comforts. We're ready to sacrifice our habits of eating this, that, and the other, and change our diets. And when we begin to do this, then yes, we will see a major shift happen in the world. I've just mentioned lifestyle change in terms of diet and drink and so on, but what allows this to take place? It is a change of consciousness. When I begin to recognize values, like Laura mentioned, when I begin to recognize the importance of value, and that values lie within the self, within the inner being, the spiritual being that I am, and I start becoming aware of the world within, I reconnect with my own original values, and I start using those values in my life. A simple one, coming back to the origin of self-respect, knowing who I am as an eternal being. Then in that awareness, I'm able to respect not only human life, I'm able to respect all forms of life. And there's no violence against other animals and other creatures. But beyond that, I'm able to respect the whole spectrum of nature, my ecosystem that has supported life and supports me today for millennia. And so at this moment, what I need to do is to learn to have respect. So I've given one example of values starting inside and reaching outside. And I know that as we continue our dialogue, we'll recognize further values and the importance of those. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Om Shanti, peace.
Thank you very much, Sister Janti. And yes, we all need to be reminded about the individual responsibility in climate change and how it all starts with me. And when I think of my personal change and personal contribution, then I actually become a leader, isn't it? Like we touch other people's heart, and that's what a leader does. So thank you very much. So next speaker is Amira Woods. Amira, she's calling in from Washington, and she's a strategist, researcher, and advocate specializing in social impact and innovation. Amira is originally from Liberia and has led efforts on COVID recovery and Ebola response. She's a trustee of the Wallace Global Fund and a associate fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies. She serves on several boards and is also an ambassador for African Rising, a network of African social movements working to build peace, seek justice, and manifest dignity. Welcome, Amira.
Thank you so much. It is an honor to be on this esteemed panel, and I just want to say thank you to the Brahma Kumaris community and also to all who have put together the EU Pavilion. As I listened to my fellow panelists, I was blown away. The reminder of values, the reminder of what inspires us. And, you know, Sonia, you asked us to share our personal journey. For me, my personal journey begins in Liberia, where I'm from, but really begins in a very rural area with my grandmother. My grandmother, a mother of 9, who planted trees. And when each child was born, a tree was planted. There's so much more that she did. If we had more time, I could go into. But I think what that reminds us of is the indigenous wisdom, courage, vision to understand that we are so closely connected to this planet on which we live. And what we do for ourselves, for our health, for our nutrition, impacts the planet. So yes, she planted one tree for each child, knowing that the tree would bear fruit, but also understanding that each child would then care for that tree. And it is that connection that I think is the root of many of us as we think of ourselves as environmental justice activists, is that connection to the land, that connection to the soil, that connection to the ground. So I place myself there. There's much more that where our careers take us. But I think without that understanding that comes in an intergenerational way, as our colleague so beautifully said, this must be intergenerational, this moment we're in. Without that intergenerational connection, nothing is possible in terms of the work now or the work in the future. So I thank you for this opportunity to share and to talk about the SHINE campaign and the work that SHINE does. As I listened also to Lara, I recognize that many of us do take on that negative example of code red, the sky is falling. Friends, it is a difficult moment. We cannot escape it. As we've already mentioned, from wildfires to rising sea levels that's now already putting communities, particularly communities in capital city across the African continent, but in Asia, in Latin America, communities that are often communities of indigenous Black and brown peoples, those communities are of grave risk with climate change. And what we recognize is as climate change is ravaging those communities, there is also incredible opportunity, because it is those very communities that are saying, enough is enough, not on our watch, let's get off the addiction to fossil fuels and focus on saving the planet and its people for now and for future generations. So it is those communities that are coming forward with solutions. Solutions that will not only protect their environment, but will protect the entire planet. And it is in that context that SHINE comes out to say very clearly, we all must play a role. We all must play a role. From those warriors, those climate activists at the community level, to philanthropists, social impact investors, other values-driven investors, faith communities coming together to use our strength, to use our resources to actually finance a more sustainable future. Finance is what the energy transition needs to actually reach its fullest potential. So when we look at this question of finance, the numbers are stark. What we see from the UN, particularly Sustainable Energy for All, is that finance is actually going in the wrong direction. It's declining in an area that is so desperately needed in terms of this transition to renewable energy. Annual investments are actually going in the opposite direction. In 2019, it was an estimated $32 billion, down from $43 billion in 2018. And what we recognize is that in the midst of a COVID crisis, the financing will continue in the wrong direction. And that there are particular regions, especially in the African context, where the financing gap is grave. So what we're seeing is that in this push where communities are wanting, as we've already heard, to transition to clean energy that is accessible, available, affordable, in their communities. There are obstacles to achieving that goal. And the finance community can step up, must step up. We at Shine are a community of practice, bringing together faith and values investors as well as philanthropists to say there is another way. Finance can be directed particularly at women-led initiatives, community-driven initiatives that are viable and sustainable for the future. It is these initiatives that will help the world to actually transition to achieve the goal of reducing emissions to less than 1.5% degrees Celsius. Without attention to women-led, community-driven initiatives, the world will not be able to meet its mark. So what we're saying is that basically, this is the time. Now is the time. The opportunity is there. What we must come together to do is to raise the level of visibility of these solutions that are being driven from communities around the world. Elevate those solutions, connect those solutions to the financing that's needed to actually bring about the energy transition that the world so desperately demands. So it takes values, it takes systemic change, looking at all the issues, not only SDG 7 of energy transition, but looking at all of the SDGs, all of the Sustainable Development Goals to say, how do we shift our priorities to protect people, to protect the planet? Now is the time. Now is the time.
Thank you. Thank
The
you.
time is going short.
Yes, now is the time.
Let's
Thank
raise
you
our
very much, Amira. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, it's a good reminder that we all have to come together and share resources. And also, you know, it's not only does the curves and statistics for pollution go the wrong way, but also the finance for renewable energy go the wrong way, which is a sad reminder, actually. So yes, time is now to act. And that leads me to the last speaker, Golo Pils, calling in from Mount Abu, India. And he's the advisor to Brahma Kumaris on renewable energy. And since the early 90s, he has played a key role in establishing Brahma Kumaris as one of the single major users of renewable energies in India. Golo has directed the construction of India 1, a 1 megawatt solar thermal power plant who can operate all around the clock. This innovative project was partly sponsored by the German and Indian governments. Golo is an experienced presenter and actively participates in UN climate conferences every year since 2009. Welcome, Golo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sonia. And I will try to share my screen. I hope it will work. Can you see now my screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
then.
The elephant you can see?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So that brings me to my first topic, that we have to stay optimistic. Yeah. First, thanks for organizing these panels. Thanks to the EU Pavilion, and thanks very much to all my previous speakers. And I agree very much with most of the points being raised. And yes, it's time to act. And yes, we should not despair in doomsday. And we have to stay very optimistic that there is a future, and that we sort of are having a real big creative potential that will lead us out of this crisis. So very important to have a positive mindset. That's the first step. That's why I put this slide here. And I would like to talk a bit on the renewable energy projects of the Brahma Kumaris, as well as on this innovative leadership, which brings us there. So, okay, now how to get the slide moving? It seems that is now the trick. No, it doesn't work.
And try to use the mouse.
Yeah, I have the mouse. Oh yeah, now it works. Okay, so Brahma Kumaris is very active in the field of renewable energies. We promote solar cooking boxes, as you can see. Since many years, we're since 25 years in renewable energy projects, and it's also part of my personal story. It was not easy to start. We had to start very small with cooking boxes, with a bit of photovoltaic cells, and with solar lanterns. And we promoted almost 25,000 solar lanterns in the local community and tried to bring these people also in. We also have lots of photovoltaic installation, and are one of the biggest users of photovoltaic in India. We also have solar steam cooking systems. Okay, I think that system is a bit slow, or what? Oh yeah, we have also photovoltaic solar steam cooking systems, and cook for thousands of people. And so the big question was, of course, how to reach there, and that's very important. We have to raise awareness. We have to change the consciousness of the people, and we have to have a drastic change of lifestyle, reduction in our carbon footprint, and the use of renewable energies. And Brahma Kumaris is also very active in the field of bringing together people. We do trainings for engineers and train them in solar technologies. You can see here on the left side a solar cooking system in Abu Road. This is our kitchen where we cook for all the people, and that is our India One solar power plant, where I would like to share some slides with you. This was a project of the Indian and the German government, and we produce 1 megawatt of solar power. And you can see here the total project, and get an idea of the size and the scope of the project. This project is very innovative. It's one of the landmark projects, and we produce since 2 years 1 megawatt of electricity with it. And we are giving all our technologies free to people, and invite people and interact also regular with Indian Institute of Technology and with other research organizations in order to promote that technology. We also do a lot of training and education. Here's a picture with the local community where we do trainings and seminars and train them in fabrication skills, but also in many other skills. And we really try to uplift also the local community. And in order to reach out, we have set up an environmental initiative about 10 years ago, and have been to all the climate conferences. And there we promote rethink, reuse, reduce, recycle, and refuse. We have guidelines for our centers in which we inspire them to use renewable energies, reduce the carbon footprint, recycle the goods, and refuse all the latest fashion trends. And as we were talking also on the leadership and on women's, I would like to share this picture of my favorite life idol, I can say. This is Dadi Janki. She left us last year. She was 103 years old, and she was wholeheartedly supporting all these projects, renewable energy, solar projects of the Brahma Kumaris. And she always says, go ahead, sun is clean, sun is good, and we have to make more use of that. So she advocated a spiritual lifestyle. She said, become an angel, become a helper of God, share your love and compassion with the world. And that brings me also to one speaker who mentioned about ethics. It's very important we bring ethics and values back in the whole discussion. If I imbibe ethics and values, if I bring that up on the inner side, then of course my actions will reflect it. And meditation is a very powerful tool to bring that required inner change. I'm meditating since 37 years, and this personal journey, being involved in India and all this project, would not have been possible without that. And I feel if we all join hands, if we all jointly meditate together, imbibe values and ethics on the inside, then the planet also will take a big jump and climate change will become a small, small problem, and we all will be able to solve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Golo. And authentic leadership is also leadership hands-on. And this is a good example of, and not sitting in the ivory tower, as Sister GMT mentioned earlier. Actually, we are all examples here in this panel of taking personal responsibility for our own change and for showing leadership in action. So I'd like to give all panelists a chance to reflect on what you heard today and to share one inspiration with each other. So we have about 1 or 2 sentences per person. So what can you share of inspiration from today's program with each other? And I think we take the say, okay, Sister GMT starting, yeah.
I want to say thank you to our youth representative, and the message that you shared of the future. Well, of course, yes, it's the future for all of us, but especially for the young ones. And so I just want to appreciate that and know that whatever support we can give young people. I was young when I started on this spiritual journey. So I know that young people have a huge amount of passion and vision and can do a lot. So thank you. And I also want to say thank you for bringing in the subject of values. And I also appreciated very much what my sister from Washington has shared. It's been really very passionate that you spoke about. And yes, I think that the coming together of brilliant ideas, but finance is a very practical thing that you've mentioned. And of course, both things have to be together, moving in the same direction. So my thanks to all of you and to Sonia.
So thank you, and maybe you take 1 or few sentences each. Kulikani starting.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Sister GMT. Those are very much encouraging words. I think I would like to say that one of the things that are helpful in youth development is ongoing and improving support from our organizations. I was supported by the LWF when I started in this climate change process back in 2016 at COP22. And what the LWF did, they continued to accompany me even back in my community and in my churches. That is how I founded a project of my church, Green Elixir.
Thank you.
It was not only myself only, I'm sorry. Yeah. There are more young people that are being supported, and this is how we grow in this space. And I think if we can all do that and commit to that, we can really change the world. Thanks.
Thank you. Lara?
I'll keep it short. Yeah, it was very inspirational to hear how we all work in very different ways, but all for the same cause. And it was clear that there's really big also personal motivation from all of us. And I was especially happy to hear Kulikani talk about intergenerational justice, because I also really believe that this should hopefully also be an important topic at COP and for all of us.
Thank you. Amira?
Oh, I just want to thank my fellow panelists. This has been incredibly inspiring, thinking about both the inner journeys and the work that we all do. I want to lift up, Sister GMT, you mentioned the apartheid struggle. And I just wanted to say, you know, there are times when, in the words of Mandela, it seems impossible until it's done. And I think for many of us, you know, as we see the addiction to fossil fuel, we see now a momentum driven also by young people to divest from fossil fuels, to actually put the world on a more healthy and sustainable path. And so I think we've got to applaud all those visionaries and activists on whose shoulders we stand, and to see the examples of their strategies like divestment being used currently today in the push towards saving the planet and its people. So I think, yeah, the whole divestment, investment what that means. How do we invest in the future? All of that speaks to what we can do when we come together as part of the human family, when we work together and we build bridges. I do think, in the words of Lada, there are opportunities. So let's seize them. Let's work together and make sure that we not only lift up these messages during the COP, but we continue beyond the COP to secure lives to protect the planet. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Golo?
Yeah, my short inspiration is that we all should stay in a very positive mindset, be very enthusiastic, very optimistic. I recommend everybody to connect to the divine and recharge and rejuvenate and switch on the inner light. And if we all collectively do that, the light will be more powerful than the darkness, and we all together can actually then create a better world, and nothing to worry, everything will become good.
Thank you. So we have to give an applause to all visionary leaders, and we have to turn on the light. And I will take this as an ending note and ask Sister GMT to guide us in a short reflection where we can spread good energy across the world. And Sister GMT, I've chosen a slide for you to hear today where we can use for the meditation.
Thank you. Let's go on an inner journey, going deeper and deeper within. I find that space where there is silence and peace. I reconnect with the being of peace that I am. And in this reflection on peace, I feel connected with my human family and the pure thought that all of us should move together forward with no one left behind. The human family filled with peace and love, supporting and cooperating with each other, can then work together to bring about transformation, transforming the way we behave with the fellow creatures that inhabit our planet, with all aspects of nature, being able to live in peace and in harmony with all the inhabitants of the planet and all the forces of nature that sustain us. I send out thoughts of peace to the planet and everyone and everything on it. Holding peace in my awareness, I come back to the moment here and now. The spirit acting here in the physical dimension on this planet, but now staying in touch with myself so that the fundamental value of peace stays not only in my thoughts, but in my feelings and in my life and my behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everyone is inspired to do such a reflection every day. So we remind ourselves why we are here in this conference for nature. So I was once in a conference in Nairobi, and the head of the whole 2-day Heads of State conference, she asked everyone to stand up and remind themselves why we're here, and to remember a favorite place in nature. And it's a very courageous thing to do. And we all here have shown courage at various times in our lives to protect dignity, peace, and respect, and to protect the planet. So I thank you all very, very much. And I'm looking forward to connect in the future. And I have a final slide with everyone's websites in case anyone of the listeners wants to connect to the speakers. So with this final note, I say thank you also to EU Pavilion and to you. And I will share this screen. Thank you.